Good morning. Welcome back to Pine and Berry Homestead. Today I have you in the kitchen with me because there are a couple things that I plan on making today. The very first thing that I would like to make is our favorite blueberry bread. It is absolutely delicious. It's essentially a sweet bread and we love it. I've made it I don't know how many times over the last year. So we actually have a local berry farm that we go to in the summertime. They have things like strawberries, they have blueberries, they have raspberries, and they have dig your own potatoes, they have pick your own flowers, and we go there and just enjoy our time picking fruit and maybe getting some flowers and potatoes. And last year we picked an entire flat of blueberries, and we still have a little bit left over in the freezer that need to be used up. So I figured I'd use it today, and because blueberry season's right around the corner, so we will be getting more, but I need to use up what we have. And so the recipe that I am using is from julieblanner.com. I will link it down below. And this is our absolute favorite recipe. I have tried multiple other recipes and they were okay, but we found that we really enjoy this one. And it's one that I go to and make over and over and over again. And I bring it to family functions, and I made it for Easter this year, and everybody really seems to enjoy it. And she has different variations of this recipe that you could do. You know, you could do like a cream cheese swirl in there. You could do a glaze on top. I thought I saw one that she mentions lemon in it, and different variations. Her recipe is very clear. She gives very clear instructions on her blog as well. And like I said, I'll link it down below. And the second thing that we're going to make today is something called a ginger bug. It is essentially a fermented ginger, and I will talk through it a little bit more when it's time to start making that, but we are going to get started on making this blueberry bread today. All right, so first things first is getting out all of our ingredients and the items that we need today to make this blueberry bread. So I have my flour, sugar, I have vanilla, I have my baking powder, I have an egg, I have unsweetened almond milk. We're not huge milk drinkers in this house. My husband likes almond milk, so that's all I have on hand for right now. Cinnamon, blueberries are in the freezer. I'll get those when it's time. This recipe does call for vegetable oil as well, so we'll be using that. But the first thing that I need to do is butter my bread pan and start my oven. I need to preheat that to 350 degrees. So we start with, I'm sorry, my kitchen's kind of a little small and not set up to do like a cooking show. I don't have an island in my kitchen. It's an eat-in kitchen, so we have a table set up over there. So I'm making do with the space that we have. But I'm going to do 2 cups of flour. I'm going to do 1 cup of sugar. Whoa. All right. I'm going to save this to measure out my blueberries. There's a little bit of flour on the inside, which is good. My blueberries are frozen, so hopefully by having the little extra flour on the inside, it will help them not like stick together or sink to the bottom. Since my blueberries are frozen, it may turn the bread a little bit, you know, have purple swirls throughout the bread, but that's okay. It doesn't bother me any. It's still delicious. And then I need a tablespoon of baking powder. And a half a teaspoon of salt. So we actually use Redmond's real salt in our house. We just have this leftover Himalayan pink salt container that we decided to put the Redmond's real salt in. I really, really like it. I tried it I bought it last year and tried it for the first time, and I don't know if I will ever go back to any other type of salt because we really enjoy this. And then I'm just gonna incorporate the dry ingredients. I realized I forgot to butter my dish. Sometimes I am a little absent-minded, and that is okay. So obviously you want to start with clean hands. That is a must when you're in the kitchen. And start with clean hands because I am going to use my hands to butter the dish. I feel like it works best that way. I'm just going to take it and make sure I get all around because it's going to help make sure that the bread does not stick. I'm telling you, this bread is just absolutely amazing. And it's something that you can make in a bigger batch and freeze if you want to. You could freeze the whole loaf. You could cut it up into slices and wrap it in either wax paper or parchment paper. I don't know exactly which one is the one that you can put in the freezer. I haven't really done like big batch cooking or anything like that. So I'm not very versed in which type of paper you can put in the freezer, but you can do that. Like I said, you can make this into, you could make it into muffins, blueberry muffins, really good for like brunches, all that fun stuff. All right, and the next thing that I'm going to do, sorry, I'm washing my hands. The next thing I'm going to do is start getting my wet ingredients prepared and ready to mix in and make the batter. All right, so also I do add cinnamon to my blueberry bread. I don't measure it. I just put what I think is enough, basically. Okay, just gonna get this incorporated. I need to grab an egg and my blueberries. Before I do that, I'm just going to move this stuff out of the way to make a little bit more room. And blueberries. All right, I found them. So I should probably have just about a cup of frozen blueberries in here. And I do have some of these like golden raspberries as well that I think I might throw in to see if we might like that. I mean, I know I'll like it, but. All right. So we are going to use 1 cup of milk, 1 large egg, 1/3 cup of vegetable oil, and 1 cup of blueberries, and then we'll add vanilla. So one cup of milk. I'm just going to put my vegetable oil right in the same measuring cup. I'm trying not to dirty dishes if I can help it. So that's 1 cup of milk, and then we're going to do 1/3 cup of vegetable oil. And I'm going to try to be very careful. I am a messy cook sometimes. Okay, and then we're going to crack the egg. Very gently here. I'm just going to mix this together. I am also going to do about a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm going to measure out the blueberries. Actually, it's mostly raspberries in here, but essentially this is a blueberry bread recipe that I really enjoy, but right now we are running low on the blueberries we have, so it's about a 50-50 mix, and I think it's still going to be just as delicious, honestly. All right. I am so used to baking in the kitchen with my 4-year-old and kind of being like all over the place that even when he is not here, I still feel like I'm all over the place. Because, you know, baking with little kids can be tough sometimes. It's wonderful. I absolutely love having him in the kitchen. It's like one of my favorite things, and he always wants to help, which is fantastic. When he was young, we started bringing him in the kitchen when he was really young, like an infant. And then as he got older, you know, like around 1, 2, we started making like cookies and stuff with him, and he used to be able to tell me like what ingredients I needed for pancakes, like right off the top of his head. We don't make pancakes much anymore, but It's always fun to have a buddy in the kitchen, and when he's not here, I miss him. But he is out fishing with his dad today, so they are doing boy stuff. Having a dad and Abe day today. All right, then I'm just gonna gently fold in my berries. Again, I would have like to use more blueberries for this recipe because that's what I typically use. Today we have a lot of raspberries and some blueberries. I'm just gonna break it up a little bit. I think it's still gonna be equally delicious though. And I'll probably add in some of these golden raspberries as well. They were actually my favorite. I'd never had them before until we went to that farm and I saw them and I was like, wow, those look really cool. And yeah, so I think it'll just be like a medley. A very different flavor than like your typical raspberry. I think that's good. Actually, maybe a little bit more. So before we put all the berries in the freezer, we did wash them and dry them. So they have been washed. We just don't have like a dehydrator or a freeze dryer or anything. Those things are very expensive. We have been looking into dehydrators though, because we thought that would be a really great idea. And we've also been looking into getting vacuum sealers. So I think that might help us with vacuum sealing meats and any berries that we might pick over the summertime. All right, and then I'll probably just take a few of the berries and stick them on top. And I think this is going to be really delicious. So maybe I should call it a 3 medley berry recipe bread. And this will go into a preheated oven at 350 degrees for 50 to 60 minutes. My oven is a little strange. I don't know if it's going to need to be like replaced at some point, but it does take me a little bit longer, sometimes an hour and 5 minutes, sometimes an hour and 10 minutes, but I just do the toothpick test when the hour is up. I do a toothpick test, see if there's any residue left on the toothpick. If there is, it needs to go in for a little bit longer, and then I just do like a few minute increments. All right, looks pretty yummy. So there's that. I'm going to clean up the kitchen really quick before I start my ginger bug. That way I have just a clean space and it doesn't feel so cluttered. So I'll be right back. Okay, now that my space is cleaned up, I am going to get started on this ginger bug recipe. So I had actually originally come across it on Pinterest. I thought it was a wonderful idea. I was like, oh, it's because it's essentially a ferment. And as we know, ferments are really good for our gut health because it has that good bacteria that our gut needs, probiotic rich. And when I saw it, I was like, that's a really great idea for us to try, because my son Abe and my husband Ben, they really like seltzer waters. They like the bubbly stuff. And I thought this would be interesting to try and see if maybe they liked it. I think I will, personally. I'm not like a huge kombucha fan. I've tried it before. Maybe I need to try it again. But I thought this would be interesting to make because it'll essentially, it's a ferment, and we can use it to make fizzy drinks. So in my mind, I was like, well, maybe I can make like a fizzy lemonade with it, or maybe like a fizzy iced tea or something of that nature. Some of the recipes I've seen, they put fruit juice to make a fizzy fruit juice with the fermented ginger bug. Yeah, basically that's it. That's what it's called. So I did some research and I found a recipe that I want to use from Mary's Nest. She actually does have a YouTube channel as well. She's fairly well known, I would say, and I think she knows what she's doing, so I'm going to try her recipe and see how I like it. So when you're making a ginger bug, you would think of it as maybe like you're making sourdough, where you have your starter and then you're feeding it every single day until it's time to use. If you're not using it, you can put it in the fridge and feed it like once a week. I know nothing about sourdough, but this is basically what you would do for a ginger bug. So the recipe calls for 2 tablespoons of ginger, 1 tablespoon of sugar, and 2 tablespoons of water. And that's your starter. And then you're going to feed it every single day for 5 to 7 days. So tomorrow I'm going to add 2 more tablespoons of ginger, 1 more tablespoon of sugar, and 2 more tablespoons of water. And I'm going to do that every single day for 5 to 7 days until it starts becoming bubbly and fizzy. It should kind of smell like, excuse me, it should kind of smell yeasty or maybe like a beer because it is fermented. So I'm super excited to try this. And it's just a few simple ingredients. Let me grab my water real quick. So I'm gonna just use bottled water. But you just need a mason jar, or you could make bigger batches, but I'm just gonna do a small one. A mason jar ring. I have my ginger. I need to get my sugar back out. I put it away. And I'm going to use a coffee filter to cover my mason jar afterwards, because we will be leaving this on the counter. It needs to be in a warm area to start the fermentation process. And by having this, it allows like airflow without any outside things getting into it. So let's get started. Just gonna grab my sugar real quick and I'll be right back. And I need my measuring spoons. And I need a knife. So if the ginger is organic, which this is, you can leave the peel on. I'm not so sure if I want to. I think I will. So some people will grate it. Yeah, grate it. Just wanted to make sure I was saying that right, because it sounded funny in my head. Some people will grate the ginger and put it in. I'm just gonna give it like a rough chop. Some people will even just like do it in slivers. I'm just gonna give it a rough chop. So I actually need a different knife. So we're actually, Ben and Abe and I, we're making a shift into eating better. Not as much processed food. We're trying to really make sure that we have a good, healthy diet. And I would love to incorporate fermented food in our diet. And with the gardening season coming up, we will have a lot more fresh food. We'll be able to do garden grocery shops and just go out into the garden and see what needs to be harvested and make it, make that for dinner for the night. So I'm very excited about that. We've done a pretty good job making a shift into eating, less processed food, eating more whole foods. We have tons of farms around us and farm stands where we can go get, actual organic pasture raised beef and, grass-fed beef and chicken and lamb and whatever else that we might enjoy for meat. I think it's very important to know where your food is coming from. And if you go to a local farm, you'll get to meet the farmer who raises that food, whether it's animal or vegetable. And you'll be able to build a relationship with them and ask them questions like, do you use pesticides? Do you spray? What do you feed your animals? And they'll be more than happy to tell you. So, I think there's like a really big movement, coming back to the land, knowing where your food's coming from, knowing what's in your food. Because when you buy stuff at the grocery store, you don't know where it's been grown or who grew it. So being able to see a face and meet the person who worked really hard to grow that food, I think is fantastic. I think it's a wonderful thing. All right, so I think this is, again, I'm just gonna do a rough chop. I think that's good. It looks like about 2 tablespoons. Now I'm not sure if like measurements have to be exact, like if it's a little over a tablespoon, if it's a little over 2 tablespoons or under 2 tablespoons, I don't know what kind of difference that will make. I've never made this before. I'm hoping it turns out well and how I think it's going to. That looks pretty good. Now, I don't know if this will work with dried ginger. Like, I don't know if it'll work with ginger powder or like dried ginger. I think that you need fresh ginger for it. But that's a good question if that will happen with dried or powdered. All right, so there's my ginger. Now I'm gonna put in a tablespoon of sugar, and the sugar is going to feed on the yeast, and that's gonna be like what makes it become fizzy and create that good bacteria and that ferment. So I have a half a tablespoon measuring spoon here. I'm gonna do 2 of those. And then, so we don't have like a really in our old house, we had this really awesome water filtration system. It was out of this world. Like, I couldn't drink any other water because of our water filtration system. It was just so delicious. But in our new house, we don't have one yet. We've been talking more and more about it. So I'm just going to use bottled water, and I'm just going to put in 2 tablespoons of bottled water. Oh, that was enough. That was enough. See, I'm just all over the place. All right. And I thought we had some unused chopsticks, but we don't. So I'm just gonna use, I think I could get that in there. Oops. It was like breaking off. I don't want to use that. Just gonna mix it up. And then I'm going to cover it with the coffee filter. I'm going to put the ring on, and I'm just going to set it over on my counter over there. And then tomorrow I will feed it again. I'm hoping that this is really good. I'm really excited to see what happens and how it tastes. And essentially, like after the 5 to 7 days, if you're not going to use it right away, you can put it in your fridge, and then you would basically just feed it once a week with the water, the sugar, and the ginger until you're ready to use it. You could probably do big batches of this. I'm not sure what the measurements would be. I don't know if you would start like this and just keep going and going and going. So this should probably be like, I think it's gonna make like 1/4 or 1/2 of a cup. And so it'll be like up to here, but it should be bubbly and fizzy and just yum. So I'm just gonna set this aside. We have about a 1/2 an hour left on our blueberry bread, and I will show you the end result when it's time. All right, we are looking good here. Okay. Doesn't that look good? Oh yeah. So I am going to set it right here to cool for a little while. Once it's cooled down enough for me to handle a little bit better, I will take a butter knife or maybe like a metal spatula and just go around the edges to help loosen the bread up. And then I'll get it on my wire cookie rack to let it cool some more, and then we'll slice into it. Just gonna take my excuse me, just gonna take my butter knife and go right around the edges. It's coming off of the edges very nicely because we made sure to butter this dish very well. Get it nice and greased up there. And this is the part I always struggle with, getting it out. Like, just getting it out is hard. I I can never figure it out. Oopsie. That's okay. So a little tiny bit stuck to the bottom, but that's okay. I will eat that part. And it is steaming hot here. But it looks amazing nonetheless. And let that cool a little bit, and then I'll try it out. But it is filled with all the yummy berries that we picked this past summer, and that makes me really happy that we got to have a family experience, and now we get to use all the berries that we harvested in such a yummy bread. So I just want to show you, like, unfortunately I didn't get to like cut a piece off to show you, but you can see that the inside of the bread is just filled with all the yummy berries, and it is going to be delicious. And before I let you go, at the end of the week, once the ginger bug is done and ready to like start being used, I will do another video. I have to do some research on different beverages that I can use it for before I do a video on it, because I need to learn a little bit more about it. But when it's ready, I will show you what it looks like, and I will take you along on the journey with me, because maybe you've never made a ginger bug before and it's your first time. So welcome to the world of ginger bugs. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Have a good one.